asked to give a little background presentation on the part of Genesis that we're going through, and so I thought I would talk about the area known as Mesopotamia. And I found this very interesting graphic here. This is a gamified version of Mesopotamia. I'd really like to meet this gamer who loved games so much that he designed a set to look just like the map of ancient Mesopotamia. So what I'm going to cover today is what and where is Mesopotamia, the biblical connections to Mesopotamia, and British Museum artifacts from Mesopotamia that you can go down and see for yourself. So Mesopotamia is located in what is now Iraq. And if you go to Iraq today, you will be able to see some of the places, the rivers that were mentioned in the Bible, they're still there, thousands of years later. And two of the distinguishing factors of Mesopotamia are the two rivers. And one of them is the Tigris. I hope you can see this on the screen, Tigris, and Euphrates. And the way I like to remember this is T for Tigris, top. So if you ever have confusion, Tigris is on top, T for top, and Euphrates is down below. And this is where everybody had settled. As you can tell by that big yellow area, it's a desert, not much grows out there. So all the civilization, all the living plants and humans and animals lived along the river section, and so it creates what if you can tell, sort of like a semicircle, and this whole area is known as the Fertile Crescent. So Mesopotamia, Fertile Crescent, same basic area. Now, Mesopotamia is actually defined as the land between the rivers. It literally means land between the rivers. It comes from two Greek words, meso, meaning middle or between, and potamia, river. Now, in fact, we use this Greek word for river in our ordinary English language. I'm wondering if anyone here has ever heard of a river horse or horse of the river. And those of you who have a little bit of classical understanding will know immediately what I'm talking about. This is a river horse. It literally means hippopotamus, hippo for horse, and potamus or potamia for river. So I'm sure all of us by now have walked through Leicester Square, and we've seen this big building called the London Hippodrome. And we've all wondered, why do they call it a hippodrome when there's no hippos running around it? Well, it's because hippo is the word for horse, the Greek word for horse, as we just found out with hippopotamus. And drome is Greek for race course. So horse, race course. And so the race course was where all the major entertainment went on. And so over the thousands of years, it has evolved to mean places of entertainment. So the London Hippodrome, built in 1900, was a big place of entertainment. So the next time you're walking through Leicester Square, I want everybody to remember hippodrome, horse, race course, the word hippo, hippopotamus, river horse, Mesopotamia, land between the rivers from Potamia. So now you can have more meaning when you walk past the hippodrome than just a casino. So let's look at some close encounters with Mesopotamia. First, God calls Abraham out of Mesopotamia. Second, Isaac's wife Rebekah comes from Mesopotamia. And third, Jacob lives in Mesopotamia for 20 years. So Mesopotamia is an important part of the Bible, even though we don't really talk much about it. So this is a proposed route that Abraham followed when he was called out of Ur. And some of you might think, boy, that's different than what I learned. And I'll address that momentarily, but let's just stick with this route for now. And so he starts off in Genesis 12:1. The Lord had said to Abram, "Go from your country, your people, and your father's household to the land I will show you." And so he starts off in that little, all the way up north in what is now southeast Turkey, Ur of the Chaldeans. And they stop in the town called Haran. And from there, Abraham moves on to go to Shechem. all the way down in the land of Canaan, which would become the land of Israel. So that's the first call from Mesopotamia. The second one is when Isaac's wife comes from Mesopotamia. Then the servant left, taking with him 10 of his master's camels, loaded with all kinds of good things from his master. He set out for Aram Naharaim and made his way to the town of Nahor. And so we see that he starts out, again, down south, where he starts in Beersheba, and works his way all the way up to Haran, all the way back into Mesopotamia. If you can see a little bit of the Euphrates River, it's definitely the land between the rivers. The Euphrates is to the south of Haran. And then the servant comes back with Rebekah to meet Isaac in Beersheba. So our third point of contact is when Jacob flees to Haran to avoid Esau. Then Isaac sent Jacob on his way, and he went to Paddan Aram to Laban, son of Bethuel, the brother of Rebekah, who was the mother of Jacob and Esau. So remember that Jacob had cheated Esau out of his birthright, and it was in Jacob's best interest to run as fast as he could away from Esau. So he leaves Beersheba, heading again to Haran, because that's where his family is. And there he not only stays there to be safe from his brother, but he meets his two wives, Rachel and Leah and Rachel. And he works there for some 20 years before coming back south, where he meets up with his brother Esau near the Jabbok River. And Haran is in the region of Paddan Aram. You'll hear when you read through, it says that Jacob went to Paddan Aram. Paddan Aram is the region, and Haran is the town where he was living. So I just mentioned that I'm showing where I think Ur of the Chaldeans is located. However, that is a minority viewpoint. The majority viewpoint is all the way, if you could look in the lower right-hand corner, is another city called Ur. But it was the great famous city of Ur, and most scholars, most Christians believe that that is the Ur that is being referred to. Beyond this little presentation, there are some logistical reasons why I think that's the wrong position. And as a matter of fact, one of the leading archaeologists who worked back in the early 1900s also disagreed. And so I've found his position to be more compelling. We could discuss it later. So I believe that Ur of the Chaldeans is actually up north. However, most of the Christians and scholars believe it's in the lower right-hand corner in the southeast. However, I'm going to show you some artifacts that are in the British Museum that come from this great city of Ur, which led many Christians to believe that this was the city that Abraham came from. And the first one is called the Standard of Ur. And it's the archaeologists who discovered it thought that it was put on top of a pole and maybe walked around in a procession. They don't really know. But what's interesting are two things. First of all, the date of this is 2500 BC, which is at least 500 to 600 years before the traditional dating of Abraham. So I think this gives us a really good indication of the sophistication of the culture that Abraham was coming from throughout all of Mesopotamia. There are two sides to this. This side is called war. If you could kind of make out on the bottom level or register, you'll see chariots and you see some bodies lying on the ground, which is not a good thing if you're underneath those hooves. And so we see prisoners in the second and in the top rows on the right-hand side. And on the flip side of this is the peace side, where the ruler is having a banquet. You can see them sort of raising a toast, and then there's food and flocks coming, probably for slaughter and feasting. So this is a very famous artifact from the great city of Ur, and Leonard Woolley, the British archaeologist, was very excited to have found these artifacts. And this other piece, his enthusiasm was so great that he called this piece Ram in a Thicket, because if hopefully you've remembered the story with Abraham sacrificing Isaac, and Isaac was about to be killed when, in fact, the God stopped him and pointed him to a ram in a thicket. However, those of you who are sharp-eyed will notice that the horns are straight. This is a goat. It's not a ram. But Leonard Woolley wanted it so much to be Abraham and Isaac that he called it ram in a thicket, so the name has stuck. But notice that the date is also from 2600 BC. This is made of gold. It's got gold on it, lots of intricate workmanship. And so Abraham had to have come from a pretty sophisticated background. And this is one of my latest thought revelations. This is the royal game of Ur. It's on permanent display at the British Museum. It also dates from between 2600 to 2400 BC. And it's called one of the world's oldest board games because we actually have the rules for it. And Wikipedia has said that it's, here's some things from Wikipedia entry, the two-player strategy race board game. It was popular among all social classes. And so I have to think Abraham had to have played this game. It was very popular for 1,200 years. And Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, all the sons of Jacob, Leah, Rachel, Rebecca, Sarah, they must have been playing this game when they were relaxing. It became associated with fortune telling. And so if you landed on certain squares, you will find a friend, or you will become powerful like a lion, or you will draw fine beer. I think everybody liked that one. They wanted to land on that particular square. And so after 1,200 years, it gave way to backgammon. So, but you can still buy a replica of it today at the British Museum and play like Abraham played. And finally, I thought this would be interesting to point out. These are Assyrian household fish cloak gods. A little bit later than Abraham and Isaac, but these are small household gods that have fish cloaks. If you look very carefully, you see the head of a fish on top. And this is remarkable for two reasons. Number one, when you think of Assyria, you think of the prophet Jonah going to Assyria. And perhaps why did the people repent so quickly? Well, fish was a religion. So that's another whole interesting story. But here, the other more relevant part is that these household gods are mentioned when Jacob sneaks away from Laban, and we see that Rachel steals her father's household gods, and they're small enough to fit into a camel saddle, and where she can sit on them. And so this could be something like those household gods that Rachel had stolen. So we found out that Mesopotamia, land between the rivers, still there today. Abraham, Isaac's wife Rebecca, Jacob and his wives Leah and Rachel come from Mesopotamia, and that Mesopotamia was a sophisticated culture out of which Abraham came.